Now streaming live on custom live streaming service.
Okay, are we ready?
Morning,
Jen?
Anita.
You're muted.
It takes just a second to connect. So we're connected. We're connected to YouTube now, and just 1 second.
Okay. Let the record show that we're starting 3 minutes late, but it wasn't my fault. Good morning, everyone. I miss you more than you can imagine. And I'd like to call the Judiciary Committee to order. As chair of the Judiciary Committee, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of COVID-19 pandemic, and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that we are providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possibilities by video or other electronic means. We are utilizing Zoom for this electronic meeting. All members of the committee and select staff have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through this platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate in this meeting by clicking on the following website address, https://www.zoom.us/i/94261411599, or dialing one of the following phone numbers, 1-312-626-6799 or 1-929-205-6099. B, providing public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting. We previously gave notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing the meeting, including how to access the meeting using Zoom or telephonically. This information is printed in the House calendar. C, providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anyone has a problem, please call 603-271-3600 or email hcs@leg.state.nh.us. D, adjourning the meeting if the public is unable to access the meeting. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. I want to introduce the staff that are on the meeting assisting us. Jennifer Four is the meeting host. Additional staff providing support are Christina Dyer and Paul Greenland. This is a work session on the bills referred to the Judiciary Committee for interim study. An executive session will follow. A copy of the interim study bill has been posted on the main page of the General Court website under the heading Remote Meetings. Please note that all votes that are taken during the meeting shall be done by roll call vote. Let's start by taking a roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, please also state whether there is anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. I hope you all have this memorized, but I hope I never have to read it again. The clerk may call the roll. Whoops.
Hey, what?
I just lost my
I just lost my Well, I can call the roll, Madam Chair, if it's okay
Yes,
with you.
please do.
Representative Keynes. No?
She's
I thought
here. She just needs to unmute. just as a note, everyone is in control of their mute and unmute today. So just make sure that you unmute when your name is called.
I'm present and not alone.
Representative Birch,
I'm here at home alone.
Representative Horrigan,
I'm here at home alone in a office in Durham.
Representative Woodbury,
I'm here at home in New Boston. My wife may come and go out of the room from time to time, but I'm alone at present.
Representative Alshore.
Present, I'm here in Stratham. I'm in the room by myself, but my husband may come in later on.
Representative Di Lorenzo, Representative Di Lorenzo, you look unmuted to me. I see your name on the screen. I'll come back. Representative Burrows,
I'm present and I'm blissfully alone.
Representative Chase,
I'm present. My sister is here.
Representative Kenny,
I am present
here.
alone in my apartment in Durham.
tick, tick, tick. Representative Langley, Representative Langley, Representative Stevens,
Where did everyone go?
well, they're there. I still see the
I
name
know,
on
I
the
can see
screen.
them.
I've asked Representative Stevens to unmute. It looks like she might be frozen on her end.
We'll move on. Representative Hopper,
Happy birthday. Oh, this is just for my committee. Well, you can see people. Kind of.
Representative Hopper,
God, nobody's answering. What's up?
Representative Sylvia,
Can you see these? Here, I'll mute myself.
Representative Sylvia,
Here, the connection comes and goes, drops regularly. I'm here home alone in Belmont.
the clerk is here. Representative Hopper, Representative Gordon. Oh,
I am.
I'm on. Representative Janvrin, Representative Janvrin, going once.
I can talk.
Say, it sounded like you're here.
Yes, I'm here and I'm by my lonesome.
Representative Griffin, Representative Griffin, Representative McLean,
I'm here in Hillsborough alone in a conference room.
Representative Alexander,
I'm here right now alone, but my roommate could be in and out, and I'm in Goffstown.
Madam Chair,
I'm here. I'm alone. I've lost my video and I'm going to leave the call and come back.
we can see you.
That's interesting. You can
Yeah,
live?
yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Representative Smith, would you like Brad to give you a call to see if he can troubleshoot with you?
Yeah, see, my screen says join a new meeting. I don't want to do that. Let me see, wait a minute. Let me try this. I was afraid to try anything before. Okay, I'm going to be okay now. I was afraid to try anything before you called me because I thought then you wouldn't let me
Okay.
be on the call.
Okay.
Okay.
And Representative Welper, I believe Representative Di Lorenzo's
Oh, I'm
audio
gonna
is
go,
working
yeah,
now.
I'm gonna go back through the ones that didn't, because I think we're all here. Representative Di Lorenzo? Charlotte, are you there?
Yeah.
I hear you.
Yes, she's
see
waved
you.
her hand. Yes, she's here. And she's indicated that she's alone.
Representative Langley? Representative Langley is apparently not here,
I know. No,
although we have 20 panelists. That should be everybody.
it includes the staff though, Representative Welper. So we should have probably 3 absent.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Representative Stevens? I see your picture.
Representative Stevens is here. I can see her.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm
So
gonna,
that must be, wait, that might be a photo, rather than live.
yeah, it looks like she was frozen. I'm gonna ask Brad to give her a call since she was with us earlier.
Representative Hopper? I haven't seen anything about him.
No.
Representative Griffin? I've not seen her either. Okay, well, I guess this is how we're going to start.
Thank
I don't
you
know what to
very
do
much.
about Representative Stevens, where we know we could see her, but whether we call her is here or not here. But we
We're gonna
call
try
the
to get
roll,
some
that'll be
tech help
interesting.
for her.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much, Representative Welper, when you agreed so generously to be the clerk of the committee. I'm not sure that you counted on this, but then I don't think any of the rest of us counted on it either. Before we go to the main subject of the work session today, I do want to tell the committee that on the list of bills that the governor has vetoed, one of those bills is House Bill 1247. The committee supported the bill. The prime sponsor was Casey Conley. The bill passed the House, went to the Senate. The Senate made significant changes with an amendment, a bipartisan amendment. I think it was Representative Chanley, but I'm not sure about that. I know it was Representative Bradley. And the bill passed the Senate. It went to the governor, and the governor vetoed it. It will be on the calendar for September 16th. And I have asked Representative Kenny, who wrote the committee report, to represent the committee. And at the moment, I have an inquiry out to Representative Conley to see if he would like to do the PI, even though it is true that the final bill bears only passing relation to the bill that passed the House initially. But I just wanted to alert you all to that. And before I open the work session, is there anything else that anyone wants to share with the committee? Not seen anything. I'd like to then open the work session on House Bill 1659. This is a work session. It is not a hearing. We will not be taking testimony from anyone. The committee has received in the past few days correspondence, email correspondence from a number of members of the public on this bill. And as I know how conscientious you all are, I assume you have read all of that. So having opened up the work session on House Bill 1659, I remind the committee that because this was an interim study bill, there are only two things we can do. The bill, in fact, dies when this session dies. So the bill itself does not get referred to the next legislative session. It is my hope that every one of you will be part of the next legislative session and will bring your knowledge back to the legislature. And I know some of us are in a primary. Actually, three of the members of this committee in Durham are part of a primary because there's 6 candidates for 5 positions. And I don't know about any of the rest of you. Some of you, most of you will be in a general election fight. I'm counting on you all coming back because we were a very good committee. But all we can do is we can recommend the legislation for further consideration or not recommend the legislation for further consideration, understanding that it would not be this bill. A new bill would have to be filed. And I think the freshmen have not had that experience. And so I just want to make sure you're clear that it's not that we're saying this bill, if we vote to recommend, that we're not saying that this is the bill that would appear in the next session. It will not. And I would now open the discussion to anyone on the committee. And could you, Ms. Ford?
I'm sorry. It just seems that Representative Stevens is connected. If you wanted to just check in with her quickly. I think she's connected by audio only.
Okay, so Representative Walper, would you like to call her name?
Representative Stevens, are you here?
I am here. Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes.
Oh, great. Good morning. I'm sorry to barge in. I've been dealing with technical problems trying to be, I am alone and I am present and very happy that speaking to you. Thank you.
Well, we're happy to hear from you, and I can't imagine that you're having technical problems. None of the rest of us have that at all. Okay, now I'd like to open up the discussion. I guess there's one other thing I should say, and that is that I had asked Representative Chase to head a subcommittee on this bill when we were still in the real world. And, but of course she could not start that work until we entered the unreal world that we're in now. Nonetheless, at my suggestion, she has, not knowing what would happen, and so that she would be prepared, I asked her to make sure people knew that, you know, she was interested in forming the subcommittee. Several people did reach out to her, and that she should do the research that any chair of a subcommittee should do so that she would be ready to lead that subcommittee. And she has done that research, and at whatever time, I mean, either now or later, I would recognize her. And I don't think I've forgotten anything else, but if I have, you'll remind me, I'm sure of that. So now, Representative Stevens, do you want to say something, or not,
No, I wanted.
okay, your light's going on and I just didn't know.
Okay.
Okay, and not seen, let's see, I go to participants and I see Representative Woodbury has his hand raised. Is that because you would like to speak?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you very much. It is. I just have a question, and I want to check my memory because, of course, we went through this in detail months ago
Yes.
in another galaxy. My recollection is that in the states that legislation like this has already passed, it is not commonly used. And I know people have kept statistics on how many people use this method of ending their lives, but I don't really know whether to say it's there but not used, it's there but it's wildly popular, or somewhere in between. I'm hoping somebody can straighten me out.
Representative Chase, would you like to answer that or would you like me to?
No, I can answer and then you can jump in if you'd like. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And thank you, Representative Woodbury, for that question. There is quite a bit of data from the states that do have the end of life bill, and they put it out every probably year or every 2 years. I do have that information if it's something that the committee would like to see. It breaks categories down as to age, it breaks down as to disease or diagnosis, how many people actually use the medication, how many did not, how many ended up with a natural death versus how many did decide to help assist their own end. So it's very informative, very thorough. I've reached out to most of the states that do have a end of life bill. And again, finding due to COVID, I didn't get a lot of response, but the ones that I did, like California, just apologized for being understaffed. I've set up a talk with the ethics committee from the state of Virginia. I'm so sorry, of Vermont, which I'm looking forward to because they'll have a lot more information. So I would like to also put out there that if there are other questions like this from the committee and you'd like to pass them on to me while I am doing the rest of my research work on this, I'd be more than happy to answer a list of questions versus, you know, just trying to do it right now because it's extremely complex and in-depth. Does that answer your question?
If I could just add to that, are you finished?
Yes.
Representative Chase? If I could just add to that, a number of states have been at this for a long time. A number of states have been at this for a short period of time. And obviously, the longer the experience, the more instructive is the results. What seems to have been consistent, and actually, much to my surprise, particularly, I believe, in Oregon and in Washington, is that the alternative, and this is one piece of a continuum, and the alternative that really frightens or disturbs many of us of actually having an assistance in ending one's life has been used relatively rarely, not just in terms of the general public, but in terms of those very people who have asked for permission to end their lives. So from that, just that pool of the people who initiated action, the percentage is very small. I don't have the numbers in front of me, and I don't want to misquote, so I'm just saying very small. What has been interesting is that so many of those patients are in hospice care, and the hospice professionals report in what they believe is a statistically significant survey that those of the pool in hospice, some of those people have requested permission for assisted end of life, and some haven't. The ones who have ended up with less depression, less anxiety, and more emotional stability, more ability to relate to other people, and a whole list of things, because the professionals say, and I don't know if this is true, that they have some comfort from knowing at some point, if they can't handle it anymore, they do have an alternative. And that alone has made their end of life more peaceful and made them better able, for example, to maintain communication with their family and loved ones. I would not have expected that, and I found that to be very interesting. The one other thing that I would like to say is that there are so many legitimate concerns of people who say, what if, or is this going to be, is anyone going to be forced into this? Or is there going to be community pressure? Is there going to be financial pressure from families? You know, that one of the things that has become most clear to me is that we need to do in this state a lot more research and a lot more evaluation of how legislation could be structured to make clear that what the intentions of any future legislation would be. And I don't think we're there yet, but I don't know. Representative Horgan, I see your hand is raised.
Yes, I was just going to refer back to the fact that we had a very long amendment which completely replaced the bill which was submitted after the public hearing. So just so until we don't have to send this exact bill, we actually have two different versions of the exact bill. Although the second one we couldn't come to the decision was, and in fact, Representative Birch's majority report refers to the fact that like they weren't sure that the bills, the prime sponsor submitted a completely revised bill, and we felt like we couldn't deal with it in the time allotted to us. I mentioned I myself was actually in the minority and voted no in the interim study, but so we do have those two different amendments, and I'm not sure if anybody wants to speak to like what the difference between the two was. And I'm not the right person to speak to what the difference of the two was because I was opposed to both of them personally.
Representative Chase.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To answer or to enlighten on your question, Representative Horgan, yes, there were two amendments. The original bill that had been put in by Representative Sandler, she did voice that she wasn't really 100%, sure about the language in it, and it wasn't exactly what she wanted. So she did hand us an amendment on March 4th of what it wasn't an approved amendment at that point. With a little bit more of what she wanted in that bill. There were still, when I found, and we did as we talked to people at that open hearing, there were still a lot of questions, and it really, the language isn't exactly what people are asking for or wanting to have some answers put into it. So As far as what the difference is, I'm not 100% sure what it is, but I know that the prime sponsor was not in agreement with the original one that had come out to us and did put in her second one. That's all I really have on that.
If I could ask our committee researcher, needless to say, I don't have access to the files. As I recall, and I hope somebody will correct me, that amendment that came in did not come in through legislative services. And therefore, Representative Hargan, it was, is that your recollection also?
Yes.
Because in that case, you know, we've never had an official submission of even the sponsor's next proposal.
Absolutely, that's correct.
I'm looking at the file, Representative Smith, and there was one OLS amendment, 706H by Representative Sandler, dated February 20th.
Thank you. Representative Chase? And could I remind you all, if you just, you know, go to participants and you can just press raise hand, and that's how I know who wants to speak. Representative Chase.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the February 20th amendment, which is 0706H, whether we have it or not, there is a part in here that I found to be, we have, let me back up. We know there's a lot of opposition from our disability community and mental health, just feeling that there could be some coercion into the end of life and not really fully understanding what I feel, fully understanding exactly what the language of the bill is versus what could happen later. So there is a part in that when we do get it, and it's on page 3, and it is paragraph 2, line 15. It says, no person shall be a qualified patient under this chapter solely because of age or disability. And 3, no person or agency, including a legal guardian or agent under the durable health care power of attorney, shall be authorized to make a request for medication pursuant to this chapter on behalf of a patient who is not capable. So I find that clause that's been put in, or those lines, does help really put that together, saying that no, people have to be capable of making this decision themselves. So hopefully taking out a little bit more of the fear of the coercion, and that a legal guardian or another agent or durable health cannot just say, I think it's time. It's up to the patient, and there has to be all of the other rules followed that I don't need to get into here in order to even qualify. So I really liked that part of the bill. I think that's some nice language that's been put in that if another legislation, if we bring this forth, we should keep or even add to if we'd like to. But I wanted to bring that up because I find that to be very important with some of the issues that were brought forth to us. Thank you.
Representative Birch, I noticed that you've given up on the wisteria and you now have a fall background, but I still recognize you.
And thank you. Not sure if that's spring or fall, but I just wanted to clarify in my own mind that ultimately we're not, I don't know how much we're going to discuss the specifics line by line of either the original bill or the 2 suggested amendments versus what our chair said earlier. All we're going to do is recommend that this matter be further studied or not further studied. And I don't think we necessarily have to go through a lot of the details. But my recollection is that neither amendment has been formally put on the table by anybody on the committee. And looking at the docket, I don't see that the March amendment was moved in any way or put on the table. I just wanted to make sure that was other people's understanding.
That is how I remember. I don't see any other hands. Am I missing something? Make sure I do now. Representative Welper. You're muted, Kurt. Can someone help to unmute?
I got it.
Kurt?
I got it.
Okay, there you go. Good.
I forgot it. All right. So I have to second what Representative Burt said. Our task here today is not to get into the weeds of the bill itself and the value of that or the problems with it. It's to decide whether or not we should recommend future legislation. So this basically is a yes or no question. I personally believe that there is no acceptable way this bill can be written, and so we should not. Clearly, there's a significant difference of opinion on that on the committee, but that's my view. Is no, we're not going to find a way of doing this. I don't know of any law in the world that exists that allows this that would be acceptable to a very large cohort in our society. But so I would say no, but I think that's where the discussion should focus.
Thank you very much for your wise comments. Representative Woodbury.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I intend to vote in favor of passing this along for future consideration, but I do it simply because I find it not compatible with the way I look at the world to shut off legitimate inquiry into any subject. But I have some severe reservations which somewhat, but not completely echo those of Representative Wolper. It's clear that this is a topic and a subject that has received strong condemnation from a large segment of the society. And we saw that when we had a hearing in Reps Hall last winter, and we continue to see it in the emails that we're getting. I'm interested to see that we don't get very many emails from proponents of this. We get a few, but not very many. And a few minutes ago, you confirmed what I thought was true, Representative Smith or Madam Chair, that this isn't terribly popular in the places where it exists. And therefore, when it comes time to consider some bill in the future, I have real questions about whether it makes sense to move forward on something that is so strongly disliked by a pretty decent segment of our population, and not very popular where it's enforced. So I'm going to go ahead with this, but that's not a suggestion that I would favor a future bill on the subject. I just have to take a look at it as it came up.
Thank you very much. Okay, and I don't see anyone else. Following the guidance of Representative Welper and Representative Birch, that this is not the time to say we like lines 11 through 16, but we don't like lines 32 through 34, and that it's just the question, is this something where we would say we recommend for further legislation or not? I would like, before we end the discussion, to recognize Representative Chase, who has done research on behalf of the committee to see if she has anything that she would like to share with us about that research. And then from that point on, we can close the workshop and open up the executive session. Representative Chase?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, everyone. And I want to apologize for, I wasn't actually trying to go line by line. It was just something I found in my research that looked like it had been thought about. So, yeah, I did try to do as much as I could with COVID and not being able to have a subcommittee meeting. I found out that end of life bill of some type of legislation has been submitted 15 times between 1992 and 2020. 3 of the bills were introduced by the Senate and 12 of them by the House. They all weren't the same. They've been tweaked. They've come in different ways, but it's just a something that is a interest to the residents of New Hampshire, whether it be for or against, whether you have an issue or not. It's extremely important in one way or another. And I really want to say that I find this needs further consideration. Let me see what else I had done. Yeah, you know, the same. I have confirmed that there is quite a lot of fear and misunderstanding of the actual language of the bill or the legislation versus personal beliefs and interpretation of what the bills that have been brought forth are trying to accomplish. It does create legitimate questions that definitely need to be addressed and require further study. But I do believe and merit that this does require further consideration, and additional work must be done to improve the bill and the language before that any legislation is brought forth. I also just want to throw in there that over this time, there has been a grassroots organization that has been formed to try to help educate the public about the complexities, if not the legislation, but by the broader end of life issues. So this is something that I think is going to be very important. It's going to be helpful. The intention is to dive deeply into the points brought forth by both the supporters and the opposition, including, as I said, the fear and the unknown and the unattended, inaccurate readings and information regarding definitions such as qualification, requesting for, disposal of medications, just to name a few. Clearly, there are a lot of questions out there, and by going through other states that, again, as Representative or Chairwoman Smith said, some of them have been for quite a while, starting with Oregon, who's been almost 20 years now with their law, and then we have 2 states who just passed their law last year, which happens to be our neighbor, one of Maine. So there's still, it's kind of all over the place as far as the information that we're looking for and to really dive in. But I do feel that the more we talk and the more we look at this and who used the medication, who didn't, just being able to be comfort knowing that you have the choice to make in this decision. Again, I just find it merits more further consideration for possible future legislation.
Thank you, Representative Birch.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I guess my question goes to Representative Chase a bit. I've read carefully the emails and letters, and I've also gotten phone calls, as I'm sure most or all of us have. And they've been, thoughtful citizens concerned about this legislation. But what I've heard a lot of is less about the particulars of what this legislation is attempting to cover and not cover, and more the slippery slope of, well, if we do A, then B and C, which are really terrible, are going to happen. And I'm wondering if, as you did your research, whether, first of all, this kind of slippery slope tended to occur in other places that you've looked at. In other words, how realistic a concern is that if we spend a lot of time, let's say, coming up with very specific legislation and people are opposed to it because not what's in it, but what might be in it 2 years from now or 10 years from now.
And
Representative Chase?
answer that question, thank you. Yes, that's a huge concern. And it has not happened in any of the states that I have talked with or have researched on, but it is a concern. That's why they've also have ethics committees put together to go over these things. That is part of the information that I was saying that is not, it's the difference between fears and misreading of the actual bill to what the bill is about. The bill that is written right now and legislation that's been through, and even based on Oregon, which these are, gives it, you have to have a diagnosis and a 6-month window of life. Let's put it that way. So I think a lot of the fear, what I was finding when I talked to different organizations, and I have talked to both pros and cons, and talking and looking at the research from other states, is the fact that a lot of the fear is coming from the Netherlands and from other countries, which do have euthanasia laws that they're creepy, to tell you the truth. They are. I mean, Belgium actually has one for terminally ill children at this point. So I understand the fear. And the slippery slope, I think we can put that with almost any bill. You start something as, well, what about this? What about that? Oregon actually is the first state who has put in it's their First Amendment that's been put in because the disability community was feeling that, again, they were being discriminated, some people, because they weren't able to administer the medication themselves. So that has now changed, and there's been an amendment put in for that bill. So yes, it's a fear. Yes, I did not really see where it's made any difference in the bills of the laws of the states that have this right now, but I'm also still working on that. This is a work in progress. Like I said, I'm going to be talking with the Vermont director of the ethics committee, and these are questions I want to put out there. When I get that information, I would love to share it. That answer? Thank you.
Thank you. Now, let's see. I think Representative Sylvia was next.
Good morning, Madam Chair.
Good morning.
So first of all, I want to start with an objection to all of these Zoom type meetings as far as our Constitution, Part 1, Article 8 is concerned. I do not find this to be a process that is open and transparent for the citizens. Contemporaneously, being an actual at the same time kind of meeting, this goes on, and this is not a knock on the chair. I know that the chair is frustrated as some of us are, where you can stick your hand up, and I was on my telephone earlier and it was cutting in and out, so I had occasional little bits of pieces that I could hear. I started up my computer and that problem has gone away. But as we saw in our previous work sessions, it's really hard to make a point and counter a point that you might want to at the same time. And then as things go along, you build up while you're waiting and your hand is up, you kind of make a little list of points that you wanted to counter along the way. And it turns into this long filibuster, not intentional, but just by the way the process works. So I just wanted to put that objection out for the purpose of these meetings, and I find it it lacks transparency. As to the issue, this is my 4th term, and I believe we've probably had something on these issues, each and every one of them. End of life is a very contentious issue, just right up there with abortion, start of life, if you will. And I don't think we're getting anywhere with this, so I would recommend that we do not recommend further legislation, and I yield the floor.
Thank you very much. And Representative Sylvia, in the words of someone else, I would say, I feel your pain. I cannot tell you how much I dislike this process. Representative McLean.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to say the reason that I think that this kind of legislation is dangerous is because no matter what the language, and if the language even becomes very tight, it can lull people, I think, into a sense of security that, hey, we've got this all buttoned up. And then what happens is it tends to normalize things, and then from there you can proceed on to other things. And just listening to Representative Chase made a point when she was talking about the Belgian legislation, where she said, well, that's downright creepy, and we wouldn't do that here, but the Belgians probably don't think it's creepy because they've maybe gone through this normalization process. And I really think I don't think we're ever going to get the language that is so tight that it kind of carries through. So that's my concern with this kind of legislation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Representative Gordon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think of it very much the same way as Representative Woodbury has, and that is our only decision really is to make a recommendation that it be further studied in the next session. So my decision, it seems to me that my decision today is just whether or not I think we should today vote to have this studied in the next session. But I've listened carefully to Representative Chase as well today, and I think she's done a very nice job presenting the case. But my concern is that if I vote just to pass it on to the next session, then it is somewhat of an endorsement. And as has been said, this bill, or a bill of this type, has been brought in virtually every session for a very long time. And there is nothing to prevent someone from bringing a similar bill to be studied in the next session. And my concern is that if I say, yes, I want this to be further studied, I am endorsing the approach. I'm in effect endorsing this piece of legislation or this approach and saying, I think this is what should be studied. So I think I'm going to end up voting. I take the same approach as Representative Woodbury. I really think things should be studied, but I don't think it necessarily should be endorsed, and I'm probably going to vote against it.
Thank you. Representative Horrigan.
I'm unmuted. I'm still planning to vote no. This is a perennial issue, so I'm sure we will have bills related to this topic coming in for year after year until somebody finally thinks of something that has consensus. I think we've made a lot of advances in hospice and palliative care, but I'm not sure whether physician-assisted suicide is a good idea, given that we can do a lot of wonderful things just with the hospice care, and also there's also worried about people. Also worried about there's often others. Also, there's also a question of whether, like, people severely disabled or people who have terminal illnesses, whether or not their lives are worth living, and so the people who are living those lives may feel that their life is worth living, but then those around them may not understand that. So I think I'm very concerned. I usually work very closely with the disability community as often as I can, and they're extremely worried about this bill, even though many of them tend to be pro-choice and other related issues. also find, just to follow what Sylvia said, the technology doesn't work very well, but I think it's constitutional, and even in some ways has some advantages. So like when we get back to in-person meetings, and I'm not going to say that's going to be the first week in January 2021, I think we may, consider changing some of the ways we do the in-person meetings too. But anyway, so I'm still planning to vote no, even though I fully understand that there will be more bills, and I look forward to seeing those new bills in hearings, and maybe pretty soon we can have mass hearings in Reps Hall again, because that was definitely a great exercise in participatory democracy that we had way back, what seems like about 20 years ago in January. Anyway,
Are you
that's my
finished?
two. Yes, I'm done.
Okay,
So
thank you.
That's my 2 cents.
Representative Burrows.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to vote yes, which does not signify that I'm in favor of assisted suicide. It will be a measure of believing that we need more discussion. And we have heard, as Madam Chair said, we have heard from a lot of people in the state who oppose any type of legislation of this sort. But I think we need to hear more. I think people in the state and in the legislature really need to hear more from families and individuals who find themselves in these situations to better understand it. And that's one reason that I will be voting yes on this. And I'm hoping that we get to hear from those people.
Thank you. Representative DiLorenzo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me?
Can hear you. Yep.
Oh, great. Thank you. I'm going to be voting no, and I have a very strong opposition, mainly because of disparities in healthcare for minorities and poor people. And there's been a history of healthcare disparities amongst African Americans. When you go back to the Tuskegee syphilis trials on imprisoned men, there were women who, there's a doctor named Dr. Marion, I forget his last name, but he experimented on African American women and gave them surgery without any anesthetic. And I myself had to go to the emergency room a couple of years ago. I was having chest pains. I went to the emergency room and they did some tests on me, kept me overnight, and released me the next day. And they gave me a diagnosis of indigestion, dyspepsia. And so I followed up with my PCP and went to have a stress test. And I flunked the stress test. The next thing you know, I was in a hospital, and it ended up that I had a blocked artery, and I underwent an emergency catheterization, and I'm fine now. It was all cleared up with medication, and so I just feel like we're not careful enough, and we don't know enough about end of life to make these decisions. And so I'm totally against this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Representative, does anyone want to speak for the first time? If not, Representative Welper.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that we vote that House Bill 1659 be not recommended for future legislation.
Thank you very much, Representative. I recognize you to speak. We haven't finished the conversations.
Sandy
Representative
wants to speak.
Keynes has, and so I'm not going to accept that at this moment. Representative Keynes indicated that she wanted to speak and without having raised her hand, but now she has. So Representative Keynes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think we have to be very careful about the legislative process, to say nothing about how we decide, and that we only go forward when there's a majority in the public. This country spends millions of dollars, millions, on medical procedures and medical devices and medical items that only affect less than 50 or 60 people across the whole country. And I don't think we should be in the middle of that. To be perfectly honest with you, I'm not even sure we should be in the middle of any medical decisions. But I think it's a long, we're not taking into consideration the small families that have this happen to them. And they're not, even if they all came forward, that wouldn't be a ton of people that came forward. I find that most of my emails and whatever came from groups that are affiliated with churches. That doesn't have to be, religion doesn't have to be, it doesn't happen to be one of my priorities. And so whatever one believes in their church, that's fine. And I hope it brings them peace and comfort, but it's not for me. I think that one of the most poignant things we got was the letter from the lady with ALS. I mean, she was in her 40s and she was consigned to only having her eyes to communicate. Yesterday in the Boston Globe was an article about Pete Frates, the ice bucket challenge young man. And what he told his folks, specifically his dad, was that it was like being buried alive. I don't want to be in the position, and obviously neither one of these people would have been able to take advantage of this because I don't think they were in a position to be able to execute it themselves. They would have had to depend on someone else, and that's not allowed. But I think we have to be very careful about, well, it's only a minority. It's not the majority opinion out there. And look how long it took us, how many sessions it took us to get medical marijuana passed. It was eons, and that's not right. It isn't. We should not be making medical decisions in the New Hampshire legislature. We should be allowing the professionals to come forward and listen to what they say. This sort of reminds me of Washington right now, and it's not right. It's not right in my opinion. So that's my say, and I'm done. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Anyone else want to speak for the first time? Representative Chase.
Actually, Diane just raised her hand if you'd like to call on her.
I did not see that. Thank you. Then Representative Langley.
Oh.
You're muted, Representative. Wait. Try again. Try again. Okay, now try. Representative, can you speak?
Yes. Am I unmuted
Okay.
now?
Now we can hear you.
Okay. Good morning, all. I've been listening carefully to this conversation, and I was one of the people that was on the committee to help Wendy do some of the work, the preliminary work. And I think, as we've gone forward and gotten a lot of information in the mail from our constituents, I've had a reaction to what I've gotten because I felt as though all of it, almost all of the letters and all of the comments were inflammatory, starting out with people talking about this bill as assisted suicide. It's not assisted suicide. It's something very different. And I think that's a clarity. I think that's a definition that people use to inflame the issue so that large groups of people are in opposition to it. But more importantly, I think what Sandy was just saying is really critical. I mean, the analysis of the person who felt like they were buried alive, I just think it's so poignant. We're not talking about this as being something that would be administered to everybody. We're talking about this kind of legislation as perhaps being an option and a choice that a person can make at the end of their life. And I think that's critical. I think a lot of people are making that choice now, and we're just pretending like they're not, because there are a lot of people in hospice that are being heavily medicated, but ultimately the end result is the same. And I just think it's difficult because we haven't had an honest conversation. Well, we've had conversations and they've been honest, but they've been so polarized by political positions and emotions. I'm going to vote for it to move forward. And I support continued study. And I understand that we've done it for 12 times in the last several years, but I just think it's an issue that really needs further investigation. And I think there needs to be better clarity in terms of defining suicide as opposed to comfort measures at the end of life. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Representative Chase, do you have something to add that hasn't been said?
I did. Well, I just wanted to say really quickly that I found, you all know about my daughter. My daughter wouldn't even have qualified for this once we got, I really got looking at it. So again, I do feel that what would like to find out in the what ifs and who really would use this are like ALS, MS, even Alzheimer's is a questionable. When you're living like that and I can't breathe, or it's like drowning. These are just not great ways of living. And if somebody wanted to make that decision, I think that that's again where we need to really let this bill be studied and consider all of these other areas of illnesses. And as far as I just wanted to touch on the medical, being able to, I understand not getting involved in the medical issues. I've been fighting that my entire life with my daughter. And I just don't feel that because of, say, the opioid epidemic and personal hand with what happened with my daughter getting too much medication at times, I don't think that is something that we should just give to the medical community to do. I don't feel that's right for a doctor just to say, okay, I'm going to give you these pills and you can take them when you want. I do feel legislation does need to be a part of this to at least set the guidelines and the right and wrong and be able to decipher suicide versus a person deciding to end their life. That fits all the criteria. And I am going to vote yes, that I believe this needs a lot more study and it is definitely not going away.
Thank you very much. Without objection, I'm going to close the work session on House Bill 1659 and open the executive session. The executive session has been noticed, which is why we can, in violation of the way we ordinarily would like to do this, and I look at Representative Sylvia's name out of respect for his comments, we are going to have an executive session following immediately the work session. Opening up the executive session, I first want to ask Representative Welper if any member of the committee has arrived who you do not have listed as present. For example, did you have Representative Langley as present?
No, Madam Chair, I did not, but while I have the opportunity to speak, it is part of the subcommittee process that the subcommittee make a recommendation to the full committee. And so I would like to again move that we vote not to recommend.
But I asked you first, is there anyone
No.
who you do not have you now? Is everyone who is here acknowledged so that they can vote?
Yes, Madam Chair, we have 18 present, 2 absent.
Thank you very much. And now I recognize Representative Welper for a motion.
I move, Madam Chair, that the subcommittee recommend that we not the subcommittee recommend that House Bill 1659
the full committee, Representative Welper. It's the full committee voting, not the subcommittee.
All right, so I move that we vote House Bill 1659 not recommended for future action.
Thank you. Is there a second to Representative Welper's motion?
A second.
I'll second that.
Representative Di Lorenzo seconded the motion. The motion before us is to not recommend 1659 for further legislation. Is there any further discussion? If not, the clerk may call the roll.
So on House Bill 1659, to not recommend for future legislation. Representative Keynes,
No.
no.
Correct. Yes.
Representative
No.
Burke, wait. If you're in favor,
Representative Keynes voted no.
I'm not sure Representative Keynes knows. So
I think she
wanna
does.
hear-
She voted no.
The motion
Okay.
is not to pass, and I am voting no against that. I
Very
want to
nice.
see it go forward, so that's
Very
pretty
nice.
clear.
Representative Birch,
No.
Representative Horrigan,
Yes.
Representative Woodbury,
No.
Representative Altshuler,
No.
Representative Di Lorenzo,
Yes.
Representative Burrows,
I'm confused. I'm sorry.
Let me repeat the motion. The motion before us is to not recommend this bill for further legislation. If you agree with the motion, which is a negative motion, then you vote yes. In other words, that you do not want the legislation to be recommended. You don't want the bill to be recommended for further legislation. If you do not agree with that, in other words, if you do want to recommend for further legislation, then you vote no. It is classic legislative jargon where yes means no and no means yes. Everybody clear? Okay, I believe that the clerk has recognized you, Representative Burrows.
No.
Representative Chase,
No.
Representative Kenny,
No.
Representative Langley,
No.
Representative Stevens,
No.
Representative Hopper's not here, Representative Sylvia,
Over the objection to the process, I vote yes.
No. No.
the clerk votes yes. Representative Gordon,
Yes.
Representative Janvrin,
Come on. Come on, over here. Right here.
Representative Janvrin, is he still with us?
He appears to be with us and oh, there's some activity.
Huh.
You're unmuted, Representative Janvrin.
Representative Welber, let's go back to Representative Janvrin after you finish.
Representative McLean,
Yes, yes,
Representative Alexander,
Yes.
Madam Chair,
No.
Representative Janvrin,
Representative Janvrin, can you vote?
I said yes.
Representative Janvrin said yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in the affirmative, 10 in the negative, the motion fails.
Thank you very much. The chair recognizes Representative Chase for a motion.
I motion that we give HB 1659 further consideration.
I believe that what you wanted to say is that you you recommend this bill for further legislation. Is that what you wanted to say?
Yes, that's exactly what I thought I was saying.
I
Yes,
thought it
thank
was what you wanted to
Yes,
say. Is there
it
a
was.
second?
I'll
Second.
second it.
Second.
Representative Birch seconds. The motion was made by Representative Chase. It was seconded by Representative Birch, and the clerk may call the roll. And in this case, a yes vote means yes, you would like to recommend for further legislation. A no vote means you do not want to recommend for further legislation. Representative Welper.
Recommending House Bill 1659 for future legislation. Representative Keynes.
Yes.
Representative Birch.
Yes.
Representative Horrigan.
No.
Representative Woodbury.
Yes.
Representative Altshuler. Representative Altshuler.
Yes.
Representative
Can you hear me?
DiLorenzo.
All right.
No.
Representative Burrows.
Yes.
Representative Chase.
Yes.
Representative Kenny.
Yes.
Representative Langley.
Yes.
Representative Stevens.
Oh.
Representative Stevens. We'll come back. Representative Sylvia.
Still objecting to the process? No.
Representative Welper votes no. Representative Gordon.
No.
Representative Janvrin.
No.
Representative McLean.
No.
Representative Alexander.
No.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Representative Stevens.
Representative Stevens, if you could dial *6 to unmute.
Yes.
The vote being 10 in the affirmative, 8 in the negative, the motion carries.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, Ms. Ford, do we file a committee report or only the result of the vote?
It's not a committee report that comes out, but it is a statement because it won't be reported to the full House, but it is a
Right.
statement
It's
of the
one of
committee.
these.
And it can include everyone's
Right.
position.
All right, Representative Chase is the maker of the motion. If you would draft such a statement and make sure that the statement includes not only the reference to the arguments in support, but also reference to the arguments that were against, so that there is a complete summary. Is there any other business to come before the Judiciary Committee? Not seeing any. I hope that I will see you all on the 16th at the Whittemore Center. I certainly had hoped we would have a celebratory gathering of the committee. That's obviously not going to happen. Again, I would like to thank all of you for collegial, cooperative, civil, responsible debate over issues that are sometimes quite contentious, and I could not have hoped for a better committee. And it is my understanding that at least as of today, all of you hope to be back next term, that no one has chosen so far not to run again, and I hope that that continues to be the case. And wish you all well. Representative McLean, did you want to say something? No, I guess not.
Oh, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay, I know you are. I agree. Okay, then the House Judiciary Committee is adjourned.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank
So-
you, and thank